even though we're going to go shoot this at the school where Christian fundamentalism was invented, I think this should be a candid discussion.
I want it to be, first and foremost, to be an honest conversation.
Right.
Straightforward, tell the truth, no, nothing held back. But do you want to ask the questions? Like, do you want you ask a question, then I ask a question, you ask a question, I ask a question?
Well, how does it work when we talk? When we're just BSing together? It doesn't work quite that way.
We need to set some ground rules. And
We
the
do need to
ground
set some
rules,
ground rules,
I
yeah.
think the ground rules are no ground rules.
I want to know if this is over the line, because I think it's a valid question.
Yeah.
Is it your opinion that textually there is any evidence? Do we know whether Jesus Christ ever had an erection? No, I'm serious. I know it sounds like a joke, but my point is that we're going to cover it, right? Okay, and if he had an erection, did he ever touch it? This is the point. I mean, if we're going to do this and talk, then let's do it.
All right.
I'm not going to try to have these moments where there's a stunned silence on your part because, once again, I've threatened your job.
Well, hey, if I get fired making this movie, maybe I'll get fired.
Right.
Maybe I will get fired making this movie. But it would be nice to go down in flames together.
I am a poor, wayfaring stranger, a traveling through this world below.
When you accept Christ as a Savior, it changes your heart, it changes your life.
I feel good about warning this nation that the wrath of God is pouring out on their heads.
Radical Christianity is just as threatening as radical Islam.
There is no Santa Claus. There is no Easter Bunny. There also is no God.
I'm going there to see my father.
Okay, well, Democrats actually are doing about the fact that
You want anarchy!
And I'll see you in hell.
Have some dialogue.
That's your answer?
War should be
Pagans, abortionists, feminists, gays, and the lesbians, I point the finger in their face and say, you helped this happen.
So you're saying that the millions and millions of Americans who go to church every week or go to synagogue
have a neurological disorder, yes.
I'm not really sure what it is that you're going for here. I mean, I want to be helpful,
Right.
but I don't really know, the genesis of this thing. How did it, where did this come from?
I had a weird conversation about 2 years ago. I met a couple while I was doing a profile for 60 Minutes on the Left Behind books. The Tim LaHaye, Jerry Jenkins books?
Oh, yeah.
End of the world stuff. And they're this huge phenomenon. So I was doing a piece about both the authors and the readers. And I auditioned a couple. And at the end of the audition, which is me asking questions basically, the husband turns to me and says, "May I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." And he said, "Will you be left behind?"
Ouch.
So I said, "Definitely." I said, "Yeah, I'm behind." And but then I thought about that, and I thought, well, here this question comes at me, and it's a question that a Christian will ask a lot of times, every day. Sometimes some people, and a lot of people get asked that question in America. So why don't I actually try to answer it?
Why me? Why now?
You're the witness to the moment when I began to lose my faith. I mean, we were roommates that year when everything started to kind of go shaky. And there were conversations that we had back then that actually contributed to the decisions I made. Honestly, when I called you, I didn't really anticipate that this conversation was going to be on camera. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. Why the need for that?
Well, you as a journalist, you're going to show up with a tape recorder and a set of questions, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm a filmmaker. I'm comfortable with cameras. Here at Biola, I've got this huge crew at my disposal, all these students. And I figure, maybe our conversation, if it really is a conversation, can be a model for what's possible in a world that just has turned into this weird shouting match.
I mean, reassure me, this is basically 2 cameras and 2 chairs, right? Very, very simple.
I don't think it's anything you need to worry about. You probably won't even notice that, people are around.
People?
Here we go, folks. This is Purple State of Mind. First take of the rest of our lives. And mark it.
What are we doing? I'm going to start by asking you a pretty straightforward question, which goes to the heart of both our friendship, the times, and this project.
What do you want to know?
Do you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God?
Absolutely.
Why?
I think there's plenty of evidence, whether that's scientific or academic, plenty of evidence that indicates clearly a man named Jesus lived and walked the earth.
Not the question.
In this time. I'm not done.
I understand that the historical person of Christ is the starting point for this, but that's not really the question. The question is, do you believe that he died, was dead for 3 days, and then rose from the dead to save humanity, basically from itself, and you in the bargain personally?
Absolutely. Jesus died, was buried, and rose again.
Okay.
Just like the Apostles' Creed said it, I believe it. I believe it both from some evidence, but much more I believe it experientially. Look, my whole spiritual search, I connect to the films of Martin Scorsese. That I saw Raging Bull as a senior in high school. And I mean, it's 2 hours of brutality, of just self-destruction at its finest, So he literally, he systematically ruins his relationships. Jake LaMotta ruins his relationships, with his brother, with his wife, with all the people who are closest to him. Ends up in a jail cell alone at the end of the film, beating his head against the wall, saying, why? Yeah. I see this as a senior in high school and I say, that's me. I am that raging bull. I am that caged animal. I am that self-destructive. And the movie fades to black and Scorsese says, all I know is this, once I was blind, but now I can see. And so I've been trying to see ever since. And when I got to Davidson College and somebody introduced me to the possibility that Jesus was risen and alive, I experienced a personal resurrection. I went from being dead inside to feeling somehow newly alive, awakened. My spirit was quickened. And so I've experienced the resurrection personally, and I also believe in the resurrection historically.
How that quickening you're talking about, that's a beautiful word. How?
My early days with Jesus were the biggest high I'd ever experienced. And that's for real. Like, I woke up in the morning and I'm just like, I'm alive! Look at the sky, it's so blue. Look at those plants, they're so green. I love Jesus, he loves me. My whole senses just started tingling. In high school, I was like straight up jock. Didn't care a bit about, poetry, art, drama, anything other than, sort of raw power. And coming to Jesus totally woke up my creative spirit. The other thing that woke up my creative spirit was rooming with you.